Hello, nerds, and welcome to another time of Level Up Chat with Wilson. Solomon, always good to see your wonderfully digitalized name. Um, Today we are going to have a wonderful discussion on Asta and Moses. Yeah, that's right. Two very different kind of personalities for sure, but we're going to be having a great discussion on that. Thank you for the support. Wow, that was some love. Why is that? Let's try that. Did that work? It didn't. Guys, I'm still trying to figure out how to make sure stickers pop up right in front of everything. Apparently not allowed. Oh, maybe it's a Twitch. That's what it was. There we go. Well, thank you for the follows. Thank you and appreciate that. Um, ah, well, thank you. Appreciate for the support. Um, we'll definitely have you. Yeah, like hope you enjoy the stream today as we do our discussion. Might I ask which Asta are you referring to? So good clarification there. The Asta that we are discussing is going to be Asta from Black Clover. So that's what I gotta clarify at this point. Very good clarity there. I thought I had thrown it in the tags. Maybe not. No, that's right. Black Clover could not throw that. Professor Mike time. Thank you, Cafe. We do our darndest. We try to be educational and all that kind of stuff like that. And I will try not too hard to promo the crud out of us like we've been doing the past few episodes. But just a reminder, as we had earlier, you can totally be... Wah! Enough out of that. Just a reminder, if you do want to check out our content, here's a quick way to do it. You can scan that, be able to check out any of the stuff like that we do. We're doing podcasts, we do YouTube videos, we do blogs. We have the awesome nuggets. Do I have him? Yes. Awesome nuggets. See? Look at that awesome, wonderful face. Beautiful. You should totally check him out on Wednesday. He's a great dude to check out. And then, of course, Thursdays. Last night, we got to have a really cool time where we watched, and I don't know if you guys have seen it or not, Prince of Egypt. It's an old movie. Like, this came out when I was a little Nino. It was kind of crazy, but also tons of fun. It was a great opportunity to be able to watch the Bible come alive. Yeah, Cafe. Yes, right? Okay. So I don't feel like I'm completely out there. Hey, Neptune's on here. Way to go. Man, we are getting some peeps checking out and getting involved in the chats. Woo, man. And yes, this may have been inspired. This chat may have been inspired because we were watching Prince of Egypt last night. But it really kind of kicked in this morning, really kind of analyzing these two characters. And so I hope you're willing to put up with my crazy connections here. I hope I can piece it together enough for you guys to be following along. If you see heresy, just call me out on it. Trust me, we are here to learn together. This is my big encouragement. We as a ministry, as Graphic Word, are here to level up each other in our lives, in our faith, and development. And so, like, awesome. Some of these guys that are here in the chat are fantastic people that have helped me level up in, like, growing deeper in my understanding of faith or being able to ask good questions. I know particularly Hoff, we've had great discussions in the past. Same with Neptune. We've had great conversations on just elaborating key ideas of the faith of Christianity. Same to Solomon, who always drops down these, like, wonderful little quotes in our chats. So if those of you who are checking out the chats, you should keep an eye out for Solomon's stuff. It's really cool to sit on. And as you guys may know, Cafe Anglican is fairly new to our YFC crew, but he throws down some great knowledge bombs as well, and throws it into the feed sometimes, or sometimes chimes in as well. We appreciate that. We are here to grow together. We are here to grow in faith and development. We are here growing in nerdom. That's why we connect everything to it. But that's what we are called to be. We're called to be nerds, not just in the things that are nerdy. We're called to be nerds in faith. So what really being a nerd is about is being passionate about something to the point where like you go hardcore into details, into wanting to share it with other people, developing your group and community in that way. And so we want to encourage that's the kind of community that we are developing here, what we have in our Discord community, in our ministry, and what we do. So tie into it. If you got a link to to our Discord, throw it into the chat. There's random open invite links. You can do that, throw it in the chat. But without further ado, so that Wilson doesn't go completely off track, we're going to get into A, we're going to widescreen things. But then B, we're going to get into dives. So, Asta from Black Clover. See, look at that. Easy. Whoa, hey, you need images. We need to work on images here. Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right, this is Asta. If anyone's a fan of Black Clover, you know how insanely activating nerd part of the brain. Absolutely. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. This is the dude, Asta. He's nuts. He's kind of boss with another Haas of extra Magos. Yeah, he's nuts. But here's his backstory, right? If you haven't seen the anime, this is your small debrief. I haven't even watched all of it, and much to Tom's angst toward me on that for not watching it all the way through, I'm sure. Asta essentially is this dude who had like no magic. None whatsoever. In a world that like if you were powerful, you had magic, and you were powerful because you had magic and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, this guy had nada. Like there's birds in this world that detect who has like the least amount of mana by hanging out around them. Yeah, this dude got like overwhelmed by a bunch of these birds, and like throughout the anime, there's like one bird that keeps on hanging out with him. It's kind of funny. It's kind of insulting, but it is kind of funny. So legitimately, this guy has nothing going on. And so he really just kind of is pushing against society, right? Like everyone's just like, dude, give up. You got nothing to contribute. And this guy outright says, dude, I'm going to be the Wizard King. I'm going to like kick some butt. I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to be the best there is. And everyone's just like, dude, you're like stupid. Like, why are you even trying? What is the point? And then it turns out, you know, he wills himself to all of a sudden having this black grimoire, which is like nuts, and it's a black clover, which is like connected to the devil, which is weird and different. But like this guy essentially in his will and determination all of a sudden has magic. All of a sudden starts like leveling up in crazy ways. It's just it's bonkers. It's absolutely nuts. It doesn't make any sense. But you see it time after time and fight after fight. I'm trying to remember Asta Black Clover first fight. This is actually maybe the one that I'm looking for. Where is he? I'm trying to remember who the dude was that he fought with. Anyone on the chat, you can throw this into the line. I'm trying to remember who the dude's name was. But it was, it was like their wizard trial or stuff like that. Wizard trial? Yeah, that's also not working. Anywho, there's this moment where he's like getting testing and stuff like that. Maybe it's the test. Sure. Okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. He gets picked on by all these sparrows. Like, absolutely nuts. It's funny. It's just sad and pathetic. Here he is. This guy. The entrance exam. This dude here, he seems like he's all nice. He's like, oh, dude, Asta, I get it. Like, you're trying your best. You're all good. And you're like, oh, man, like, that's going to be his buddy. Everyone who reads any book right now is like, that dude's going to cause crap. And, yeah. Yes, that's the second fight. Thank you. Appreciate that. So he gets into this competition, and it's like to see who's stronger of the two. And this guy, who at first seems like kind of friendly, is like I'm going to obliterate you so hard in front of all of them that, like, when it comes to selecting me to be part of, like, these wizard guilds, I'm going to get into a sweet guild. And they're going to be like, that dude, he's got some pretty awesome power. And he can just show off. He doesn't have to worry about surviving. And Asta, like, clearly has nothing. Absolutely nothing. He can't do anything. He can't even make his broom hover at this point. It's just nuts. And yet, out of, like, just sheer determination, he pulls out, like, this sword out of nowhere and sends back this guy's magic orb thing that he shoots out of this weird shell thing that's both a defense and also offensive thing. Sends it right back, cracks, boom. And everyone's like, what the heck is that? What is that? What the flip? And he's like, my magic is never giving up, essentially. And it's just like, what? Like, what? That's just nuts. And so then, of course, they go to selection time, and Asta is waiting to see if any guild is willing to take him. He also caused some problems with Yami, which is awesome. That relationship is just great, because Yami, fantastic. Also voiced by All Might, so that's what makes it even better. Just saying. But essentially, Yami is the one that's willing to take him into the Black Bulls, which is like the outcast kind of group of the wizard guilds, right? Like of the different groups, and they're really misfits. Like, these are the guys that you're like, seriously, like, they're different, I guess. Sure, why not? But he's willing to invest in it, and you see this thing that's going on with Asta is that he is willing to push. He is willing to grow. He's willing to develop in himself and willing to challenge the process and show, no, I am going to make a difference. And the confidence is absolutely bonkers. Now, I have not watched the rest of the series, so sorry to all y'all who have watched the rest of the series and like, Mike, you're barely... Like, I know, like, there's things that you're probably like, dude, like, why aren't you talking about this moment? I have no idea what that moment is. It looks boss. It looks scary. Reality is there's only so much time in the day that I've got. And so working on what am I reading, what am I doing, stuff like that. But this is a great anime. For those of you who are wondering, Black Clover, should I be checking this out? Do it. It's great stories. It's great development. In fact, the guy who created Black Clover, the author of Black Clover, is actually a huge fan of Bleach. That's where he gets some inspiration from his writing. Specifically, Asta is definitely another version of Ichigo. My man. Okay, I will stop pitching Bleach at this point, but I just can't help it. Neptune. The first one is also very interesting. The chain dude. Yes, that's right. The chain dude was pretty incredible. Asta is stopping a robbery, and the crook is just super condescending to no magic Asta, right? Like, absolutely. This is nuts. Like, this guy who's able to detect magic with his chains, even, he senses that Asta's got, like, nothing. So he's like, why am I even bothering with you? Why are you even getting into a fight? And it's just, boom, out of nowhere. He's like, what the heck is this? Like, what is going on? It's just nuts. And so I love it because of pure determination. I love that Asta really sets the tone for this magic isn't just something that you're gifted with. It's a determination. It's a choice. It's a willingness to respond, kind of stuff like that. And you might be like, okay, so, like, Mike, how, scratch head, think hard, stare off into the distance, wisdom moment. How does this connect to Moses at all? And so we're going to, like, dive into that. Like, we're going to be jumping over to this dude Moses. Because I'm giving you guys visuals rather than just only scripture referencing and stuff like that. You guys can read through this and process this together. I will be giving you chapters to read through and stuff like that. But let's work right now. This dude, Moses. I'm hoping you guys know who Moses is. If you don't, guess what? You're going to get a little bit of a background kind of thing and stuff like that. And we're not talking about Charlton Heston. though. That's like, look at that. That's a rugged looking Moses, though. That's a pretty good looking 80-year-old Moses. Like, I'd actually say that's more like a 60s, maybe 50s style Moses. So even not 100% accurate Moses, we appreciate him. We love him. Charlton Heston. Like a rugged, awesome, stare off to the distance wisdom, man. Again, you should watch 10 Commandments. It's pretty interesting, pretty intense and stuff like that. I do appreciate it. The Moses that we had was Prince of Egypt, which was even worse for this case. Because look at this. Like, man, Moses gets sent out. It's like, dude's in his, like, maybe early 30s or late 20s. Gets a call, fairly newly married. Yo, man, I'm going to go to Egypt and free some peeps, you know? It's just what I do on the weekend. It's kind of my thing, kind of my jam. But really, this guy Moses, who we get to connect with the Bible, is just absolutely intense. He is nuts. He is a guy, though, however, at the start of his story, seems kind of insignificant. In the fact that, like, not that he was brought into royalty, like he was, like he was raised in Pharaoh's court, so he's not insignificant that way. But with Moses here, when we find God interact with him, he's actually at like one of his lowest points. Like there's nothing amazing about him. So he grows up in Pharaoh's court, finds out that he's a Hebrew. He finds like a slave driver who's like beating up one of his peeps. He's like, yo, dude, like stop it. Guy didn't stop it. So then he like kills the dude. The next day, Hebrew dude sees, Moses sees the same Hebrew that he saved arguing with another slave, and like Moses is like, yo, bro, like why are you arguing? Like what the heck's going on? He's like, whoa, man, killer, slow it down. Like don't kill me like you did the other dude. Like settle down. He's like, oh shoot, people are gonna find out about that. It's kind of awkward. I'm going to peace out. So he runs all the way out into the desert, into Midian. And this is where he spends 40 years. So the dude pieces out at 40 in Egypt. Spends 40 years out in Midian doing shepherding. It's kind of like you. That's his retirement package. Not amazing. Doesn't really stand out, right? He's just like walking around and all this kind of stuff like that. The Chosen series. Absolutely. Guys, the Chosen series is fantastic. I love the Chosen series. And sometimes they have cool highlights from the Bible, like in the past, looking into that. I know they had a moment with Moses and the bronze snake. That was really cool, and that was in season 1 when Jesus met with Nicodemus. So you should check out the Chosen series too. Anywho, so when you really engage with Moses, he's at his low point. He's just a shepherd. He's wandering about. Sheep decides to peace out, and like that's not cool for shepherds, right? So he goes and finds the red bush. Oh, red bush craziness, stuff like that, right? Most of us might remember that connection to his past. God talks to him out of this flaming thing that isn't burning up, which is what's mind-blowing. He gets to meet with God directly, which is also mind-blowing. And he's told, hey man, like you need to go and you need to go and free the people in Egypt. What I love is Moses is like, I don't spech well. That thing with words don't do. And God's like, no, okay, I'll give you the words to say. He goes, yeah, I really don't spec well at all. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, you know, who am I supposed to say things and stuff like that? And like, God's like, no, dude, like, we're going to read it because we're going to do cheat codes like that. So you can follow along with Wilson. It's reading time with Wilson. Anywho. No, I don't want 4. I want 3. There we go. So Moses, burning bush. Just in case you're wondering, Exodus 3. This is what we're hitting up. Stuff like that, right? So this is after the whole, yo, Moses, you don't come up. here because this is holy ground, so take your shoes off. I didn't take my boots off. I'm sorry, guys. Um, but here's the thing that he throws out. The Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of the harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. Sorry, we are starting at verse 7 in Exodus chapter 3. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them into Egypt, into their own fertile and spacious land. Nice. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, and land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, a lot of ites going on, now live. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people out of Egypt. Seems like a pretty sweet job description, you know? It's just kind of cool. He's kind of vibing on hanging out with Egypt and tell him God's like dealing with this. But Moses protested God. Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel of Egypt, right? Like, he's like holding a shepherd's staff like, this doesn't scream leader material, God. Like, what's going on? So God answers, of course. I will be with you, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. So even God's like, yo, it's going to happen, and you're going to know it happened by bringing people here. They're going to worship God. Then God replied to but Moses protested. If I go to the people of Israel and tell them the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they'll ask me, well, what's his name? Then what should I tell them? Right? Like, he's like, kind of like, well, first of all, I'm not a leader. Second of all, they're going to be like, who sent you? Like, what's the deal here, man? Like, his confidence, you can tell, is kind of getting worked down, right? So this is where God reveals his ultimate name, right? The I am, right? I am who I am. Like, the ever-present one, the person, stuff like that. Yeah, Prince of Egypt, fantastic. Music is also fantastic and super beautiful. See, it's like this scene particularly. Yeah, we gotta do this. We gotta get a look at this. Prince of Egypt. Burning bush. Burning bush. So I love how the very thing here is just like, nope, it's not that amazing. So this is kind of cool. Like, where's the cool tornado part? That was like the best part. This went from like being like light blue to all of a sudden like, hokey Dinah, this is a lot of powerhouse craziness. Yeah, it starts going yellow when God's decided to get like, yo, Moses, get it straight. But it's a fantastic scene. Close connection. Moses, this is clearly someone else's drawing of it, but there was this like cool part where like God is encouraging and supporting him and stuff like that. It's really cool. Anywho, so back to the scripture, right? Like, God's trying to set him out, tell him that I'm sending you, tell him who I am, and they're gonna let it happen. They're gonna make it happen because they're gonna know that I have sent you. This is how it's going to go. And the elders of Israel will accept your message. Then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt. Lord, God of Hebrews, has met with us. So please let us take a 3-day journey. Like, God's kind of laying out some groundwork, stuff like that. But again, Moses freaks out. Well, what if they don't believe me and listen to me? What if they say the Lord never appeared to you? So then what does God do? Yo, there's 2 cool things that are going to confirm, right? He's going to like stick his hand into his cloak. So like, my hand goes in. My hand has something else. Like, you're just like, and he's like getting leprosy and stuff like that. And so that's one of the things. And then he's like, oh no, he's leprous. What's going to happen? And then goes back and he goes, oh, nope, we're fine. See? Ooh, trust. But then like the staff, right? So like one of my favorite parts of Prince of Egypt is the snake fight that goes on in the midst of playing with the big boys now. Again, great music, great score, great symbology that's going on there. And the idea that the 2 snakes that are put down by the other Egyptian priests that Pharaoh throws down and are consumed by Moses' staff, which is boss and like featured in the background of the music and the video. I love it because it's juxtaposition, because you feel like Moses is just overwhelmed by the presence of these priests, prophets, stuff like that are of the Egyptian gods, and it's kind of like, yo, he don't got much. Like, he's not all that amazing. But yet in the background, it's like, no, that he didn't have to be amazing. And I'm jumping ahead and stuff like this. So these are the signs, right? Like, just showing up. But Moses pleaded with the Lord, "Oh Lord, I'm not very good with words. I never have been. I'm not now, not even though you have spoken to me. I get tongue-tied and my words get tangled." Then you hear God go, "Okay, who made a person's mouth? Who decided whether people to speak or not to speak, hear or do not hear? It's me. It's God. I created these people. So you will do what I tell you to do, essentially. Like, now go. I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what you say." And again, Moses is like, "Lord, yo, please send anyone else." Everyone says that this is the moment when God gets angry, when he tells them, like, who created the mouth and stuff like that. And in the movie, it does the same thing, where it's like, who made man's mouth and stuff like that. It's actually after he pleads again that God's like, "Okay, fine. All right. You can't spetch well, then we will get someone else to spetch well, you know? Like, we'll get your brother. You know your brother? Yeah. He is the one who's going to be doing the specking. So, like, you know, but this is now going to be a thing. You are going to be kind of like repping me by being the one who talks to Aaron. So Aaron will be your spokesperson to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say." Like, it's like, what? Like, he's doing a physical demonstration of what God's doing with Moses. So it's really cool that this kind of imagery is going on. God's helping him build confidence. There's already this development of kind of like a mediator role that's going on. But that's all in Exodus 3 and 4. We were sitting in and reading it on that. It's kind of nuts. But the burning bush. So then again, snake fight. We got to put in snake fight. I want to see what goes on here. Oh, there we go. They have it. Oh, that's so small. What it? Oh, right. That's a different thing. There we go. A little bit better. But so God's staff is like the golden one. The other ones are like dark and stuff like that. But you see them like fighting in the background, and it's crazy and stuff like that. Meanwhile, like, this whole spiritual warfare that's going on is between Moses and the prophets that are going on. They're just kind of like showing off, look at the cool things that we can do. We're amazing. We're fantastic. Stuff like that. Again, Moses is like legitimately just telling Aaron what's supposed to happen. And this only happens even like the first little bit. And then Moses starts going to like Pharaoh. Which, by the way, in Egyptian culture, Pharaoh's like a god, right? Like, the Pharaoh that's represented in this movie is actually Ramesses. So, like, Ramesses, here, this dude, this, like, specimen of awesomeness, he is supposed to be, like, legitimately a god sitting and dictating what's going on. That's why, like, Egyptian culture, Pharaoh, you don't mess with him because he's, like, the son of Ra. That's what actually Ramesses is emphasis. Ra-Messes, like, is the son of the sun god, the ultimate god in Egypt. And so that's what's really interesting. And I want to note this. If you don't know this, this is now to blow your brain stems and go, hokey dinah. That's really cool. When we are looking at the whole book of Exodus and stuff like that, in original Hebrew, Exodus is not actually titled Exodus for exit. It's actually titled the Book of Names. And you're kind of like, what? Like, and so what you're supposed to be doing when you're reading Exodus, not just for the idea that, like, the Hebrew people finally get to leave Egypt and, like, what does that look like? But there are names that are important that are brought up within Exodus that you should be making note of. And whatever's repeated, you should always be making note of. That's a Bible study note for you. If you ever want to get more in depth, look for repetition. because that's how the Hebrew writers wrote things, so that when it's repeated, it gets cemented in here, and you're supposed to go, oh, right. So, like, what did that guy do? What did that guy do? What did that guy do? You're supposed to be knowing that. The one person that should have gotten their name, because names that are put into accounts are supposed to be important people. The big baddie in here, Pharaoh, doesn't even get his name mentioned in the Bible. Okay? Like, doesn't get his name mentioned. And you're kind of like, well, dude, like, isn't this supposed to be like a historical account? Big baddie. Yes, of course, big baddie. There's big baddies all over the Bible. Come on, Cafe. That's what we're here for. But Pharaoh doesn't get his name mentioned. And that's actually kind of like a direct insult to him. To say that Pharaoh's just a guy that's getting in the way with God. And so we're not even going to give him the time of day to give his name out there. Because, like, the guy who, like, is powerful in everyone else's standard, God's like, he's just another dude. Like, don't. And the whole point is not just to only free the Hebrew people, but God shows up to goes, yo, man, like, this whole hardening of the heart of Pharaoh and stuff like that. Oh, hello. Oh, new facts. Yes, that's right. You know who else doesn't have their name mentioned in the Bible? The devil, Satan. Yes, Satan is a moniker. Actually, a fantastic response on that. Satan is a title, and it means adversary, or one who, like, contends against an idea, right? Like, that's what actually Satan means and stuff like that. Wasn't that because Keaton changed tradition so that the pharaohs become effective for the Aten, and via that became worshipped as deities, because then the Aten was seen as a place of raw and residence. As far as you know what? Good point. I had never heard that point. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. No, I'll have to do some more digging on that later. Thank you for bringing that up, Dan. I'll be checking out that. Anywho, so this is like the thing. Like, you have a dude who was nobody, like Moses. Like, yes, he grew up with something, but, like, he had separated himself from it so far that essentially, when he contends the big guy who's supposed to get all the praise doesn't get the praise, and he then circumvents over top of it. Cafe England, thank you for the notes here. Yes, the deification of the pharaohs became the law. Interesting. Rome adopted it as well. Yes, that's right. And the whole idea that, like, they were raised up as separate beings or blessed by gods or were, like, demigods and stuff like that too. So it's interesting, right? Understanding that in different cultures and how they, so that versus what we see in the Hebrew culture, it's anointed people, it's called people, other than, like, the line of David, right? Which was foretold via Judah's startup, that under the house of Judah that there was going to be a king and all this kind of stuff like that. A lot of foretelling forthtelling that was going to be happening, and foretelling that there was going to be something going on, and from that the blessing of David. But if you look at Samuel and looking at Saul, anywho, we're digressing a lot. That's another topic for another time, but I appreciate the discussion, you guys. Thank you for throwing that in the chat. Here's the other thing, right? Moses, not just with the 10 plagues, right? Because 10 plagues, he just says what's going to happen. God does all the work. So Moses just has to be faithful and just kind of go, yo, hey, Pharaoh, this isn't working, man. Like, I need you to hear what God tells you to do and kind of do it. Otherwise, other people are paying the price. And it does talk about how scripture, that God hardens Pharaoh's heart. One of the things I appreciate in Prince of Egypt, if you listen to the 10 Plagues song, I will never let your people go, where people go. When it comes to Ramesses' line, and you should really listen to it, it's really, really fantastic. Ramesses' line is, now let my heart be hardened. So it's like as if he has this mental shift that's going on that, yeah, no, man, instead of just like, I'm gonna harden. I'm gonna allow it to be hardened. I'm just gonna make that decision that like, no, I'm just done. I'm ticked. I'm just gonna get gritty. This God is not gonna get the best of me. And you get that feel from Ramesses, right? Like he was first approached as like the weak link and stuff like that. And some of that is really just artistic discrepancy, right? Like on why would he harden his heart so badly? Why is he so turned against it? I do appreciate how they convey that it was because he didn't want to be the weak link. So he like, of course, pushes harder and harder. And it's like, no, you think I'm going to submit? You're going to submit. I'm going to, heck no. Like, you ain't doing this to me kind of deal. And that's really kind of his downfall. Because Moses was willing to submit, right? It's like working with God. But what Moses later on becomes stubborn in, and you got, like, it's not just in Exodus, it's in Numbers and Deuteronomy, where you see that Moses's thing, his strength, okay? The thing that God uses him with is really his determination. Moses is kind of like a dude who's set to the path, who's trying to be like, no, I got to honor things. I got to do things right. And for the most part, Moses succeeds until later on when he breaks a rock out of anger, when he's supposed to just speak to it. And God's like, dude, like, come on, man. You right there. That line his father gives him about the last link in the line of great pharaohs. Yeah, kind of gives him that motivation to become that hard link as well, right? Or to solidify his absolutely. That's 100%, Dane. That's 100%. But like that's the thing that we don't know for sure what was going on, but that definitely lends itself to it. And especially if you deify yourself, you start thinking yourself like a god, man, why wouldn't you push back on something, this outlier, this god that you never heard of and stuff like that? I can understand where maybe he's coming from and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, man. No. So this is where Moses then sits, right? Moses is his capacity, his gift, or the thing that makes him stand out is his will to be a mediator between God and Israel. And this really happens later. And really, the best case here is when Moses on Mount Sinai. And if you know what happened, if you remember what goes on in this part of Scripture, this part of the Bible, you know things don't go necessarily great, right? Like it's not a happy, perfect scene, kind of stuff like that. I appreciate how the Bible Project really words this. And if you guys follow us or hear us out, you know the Bible Project are like dudes that I fully support because they are the guys that essentially do deep dives but word it in a way that makes it a little bit lighter for anyone to be able to handle. And I really appreciate it. They really kind of rework it and stuff like that. But the thing that I appreciated was this moment here when Moses is going up to Mount Sinai and he's supposed to be like connecting, hearing, what's the terms of the relationship that's going to be happening between the Hebrew people, Israel, before it became fully a nation and like had its own territory. Having that conversation with them, he's talking with God. He's hearing God's guidance and instruction. This is where the 10 Commandments comes in, but also like there's other edicts to understand what the tabernacle is going to be like, what this dwelling place with God and humanity is going to be like, so that they can have this connection and relationship. It's fantastic, and you're getting amped, and you're like, holy snap, that's a lot of detail. It's really cool, but it's just kind of nuts how we have Moses just being able to interact, while down below, people already made this connection that they were going to be like, yo, God, you're going to be our God, and we're going to have Moses as kind of like the guy who talks between the two of us, and it's going to be good, but we're going to follow you. We're going to do our thing. Hold on a second. Almost going to sneeze. Apparently not. Apparently my body's like, no. Oh, sorry, Dane, you posted another thing. Moses on Sinai always reminds me of the Quranic story of Jacob or Jacob being blinded by God on a mountain and comes cascading down. Not sure why. Is that story also in the Bible, or is that a point where they differ? That is a point where they differ. That one's actually not mentioned within the Bible. You never hear of anything that's going on with Jacob on that. The big thing that you usually have with Jacob is his interaction with God and the wrestling, right? The whole identity change, that he's no longer Jacob but is called Israel because he wrestled with God, and that actually becomes the association of Israel as a nation, where they kind of contend and there's a back and forth nature between God and them, stuff like that. Yeah, which is kind of interesting here in this case because that's really what's going on. Like, Israel, or the Hebrew people at this point, are not really fully trusting God because they're out in the desert. They've even had contentions that, like, hey, what's the deal with this God that kind of is just, not fully taking care of our needs or stuff like that. It's kind of ridiculous. And Moses is like, no, like, God will provide. Boom. And, like, provides water, creates a stream, is able to, like, sustain them. And they're just told to wait. But of course, he's been up there for 40 days. You don't know what's happened to a guy over 40 days up on a mountain. It's kind of nuts. So they make an idol. And in the midst of this creating relationship terms between God and Israel, God's like freaking out because he's like, dude, these guys are already breaking things. They're not really, following stuff with our terms. I'm going to, like, wreck them. And Moses is like, oh, shoot, this is awkward. So you can find this actually in Exodus. I got to make sure I'm doing this right. Sorry, guys. Hopping back and forth, back and forth. Just saying. Yeah, golden calf is happening here in 32. And then, like, new identity is gone. So, yeah, sorry, it's in 32. And gathered Aaron, come on. Yeah, so Moses takes a long time. People are freaking out, all this kind of stuff like that. And you have this awkward situation where there's just a new God that's created and stuff like that. It's kind of frustrating, right? But here like the people are freaking out, doing kind of messed up stuff. The Lord says to Moses, quick, go down to the mountain, your people whom you've brought into the land of Egypt. How quick they have turned away from what I've commanded to live. Melted gold down into a calf and bowed down to it. Then the Lord said, I've seen the stubborn, rebellious people. Now leave me alone so my fierce anger can blaze against them. I will destroy them. Then I will make you, Moses, into a great nation. So really, Moses has, like, the pretty sweet deal that, like, people who are being stupid and, like, totally ignoring what they just agreed with God, stuff like that. But here's the thing, right? Moses is the one who's, like, tried to pacify the Lord. I find that interesting that that's what's used here in the NLT. Or, like, reason with God. It says, "O Lord," he said, "why are you so angry with your people whom you brought from the land of Egypt with such great power and such a strong hand? Why let the Egyptians say their God rescued them with evil intentions, slaughtering?" So he's like, God, let's look at the PR here, right? Like, you just rescued people in a huge and amazing way, and then you destroy them. Other kingdoms are going to be like, what the heck is with this God here, man? Like, he saves these people, then he destroys them. Like, what's going on? And then Moses is like, well, also remember, you kind of made a promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, like, the patrons of our peeps here, that you were going to, like, be with these people and that you were going to lead them to land for them, and you're going to make, their descendants a huge thing. Kind of stuff like that. But it's just kind of absolutely nuts. And so, yeah, what I find is interesting that God is willing to... So God, it says in chapter... Again, we're in chapter 32, verse 14. It says, "So the Lord changed his mind about the terrible disaster he had threatened to bring in his people." So then Moses goes down, and he then deals with these people. And in this case, he's like ticked off. Yeah, where's the part here? So he sees his brother. His brother sees him. He's like, "Don't be upset, my lord. You yourself know the evil of these people. You said make us gods." And what I love is whoever has gold, take it off. When they brought it to me, I simply threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. It's like, Aaron, you're dense, man. Like, what the heck? You're just kind of absolutely nuts. But Moses saw Aaron had let his people completely go out of control in the amusement of the enemies. So, like, this is where Moses kind of is like, no, we're going to right this wrong. And this was like a really intense situation. I'm going to say that again. This is where it kind of goes nuts, where there's an eradication of those who have done evil. And then Moses is like, you guys have done goofed up. But I'm going to go back up to the mountain, going to talk to God, and perhaps he's going to be like, perhaps we can figure this out. And he returns to God, and he's like, dude, these guys have messed up. This is like absolutely brutal. And Moses then himself says, but now if you will only forgive their sins, but if not, erase my name from the record you have written. So essentially, like, God, take all the onus on me. Like, the problem is I'm the one who goofed. Really they goofed, but I'll take it on. I'll be the scapegoat in this case, which is awesome foretelling for those of you who do extra reading. But God then says, no, I will erase the name of everyone who has sinned against me. Now go lead the people to the place I told you about, and look, like, my presence or my angel is going ahead, stuff like that. And God's the one who brings down the judgment. But what I appreciate later is God's revealed nature. And you can check this out. We've talked about this in the past on Exodus 34. What is God's attribute? What kind of God is he? And this is where he formally introduces himself. The Lord passed in front of Moses, calling out, Yahweh the Lord, the God of compassion and mercy. I am slow to anger and filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. I lavish unfailing love to 1,000 generations. I forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin. But I do not excuse the guilty. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children and grandchildren. The entire family is affected, even children in their third and fourth generations. So the thing that I've noticed, or that I've noted in the past here, is these are the main attributes that you can sit on in verse 6. But then the idea is that God shows that he's got unfailing love that is like huge amount, like thousands of generations, and he's willing to forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin. But I do not excuse the guilty. So there is like form where justice has to be served, and he does that to the third and fourth generations. But again, if any one of them is willing to call out, the blessing is bigger than any kind of curse that God lays down and stuff like that. So we can sit on that, we can enjoy that, and we can relate on that. But that's part of God's character and who he is and what he does. So how does that reflect in Moses? How does this work in Moses? Moses had to be willing to listen and follow God. And that's the thing that you see in Exodus and in Numbers and Deuteronomy, is that Moses is the representation of God's spokesperson in a way for humanity. So he's the one who typically is the one who's saying things and really pushing people back. And when he brings up a concern or caution, he brings it up to God. And he's like working out it. But he's working out this relationship that's going back and forth. And so the way that Moses is connected to Asta in this way is that they're both a little stubborn. There's a stubbornness. And at first, Moses' stubbornness was like the very idea, don't send me out, God. I can't do this. I can't do that. To then later on, his stubbornness actually gets him like ticked off, frustrated, and then gets him in trouble, and he can't go into the promised land. So what started off was no confidence became rage, and then became a problem, which became a problem. But what started off as no confidence became confidence in knowing who God is, maintaining that faithful connection, knowing who God was. And again, Moses is the first kind of official prophet of the people, right? Like this is the first development of the prophet. This would later on be one of the key people that we see as an example of how prophets were supposed to be like. They look like Moses, right? This is why at the Mount of Transfiguration, when Jesus is being revealed to James, Peter, and John, that there's Elijah and there's Moses, the one who brought the law, who is the demonstrate, and then the one who is the best demonstrator of what a prophet's supposed to be like. And that was with Elijah, but Moses was like the first prophet in that way. He was the first official leader of Israel. He was the one who would be really actually the first kind of priest before Aaron became a priest, where he could be able to work with Israel and trying to reach out to them and work things through. Stubbornness can sometimes be good, if not taken too far. Absolutely, Dane. Absolutely. And that's the thing that we sometimes need to look at. There are some attributes that seem like, that's not necessarily right. Well, it is right within the right context. If you're doing it the way Moses was doing it for the most part, where you were stubborn for the case of, no, guys, we need to figure this out. We need to work this out together, and we need to rep God well, then you're doing great at it. But when it's stubbornness to the point where, like, you just push your own way, like, you're no different than Pharaoh then, in that case. Awkward call out. If you're doing it just to be a punk, like Asta, at least, he has a goal in mind. And when he's looking at it, yeah, it's to show his strength and power and stuff like that. But you see Asta more and more throughout that series, he's doing it to defend other people. He's investing in other people and relationships with other people. And that's something we should really be considering. So that's how I see Asta and Moses are the same in that way. They have a stubbornness. Their magic is never giving up, so to speak. Not that I think Moses has magic. He has God, right? And God knew that capacity behind him. He knew what he could do. He just needed to be pushed into it in some ways. And again, like, you're seeing this through the plagues. You're seeing this through the different miracles that God literally put Moses into situations where he had to lean on God. One of my favorite moments is at the Red Sea, right? Israel is pinned against the Red Sea. They have nowhere to go. Pharaoh's army is going to, like, come and wreck them. And they're freaking out at Moses, being like, yo, why are we here? We could have died at Egypt at least. So, like, now we're going to be dead at, like, by the ocean, or by, like, what is this? And Moses is like, yo, like, I'm going to talk with God. We're going to figure this out, kind of stuff like that. And when he goes to talk with God, God's the one who's like, no. You're going to sit back. And it's specifically in Exodus 14:14. It's one of my favorite passages to sit on. And I hope this is like an encouragement for you guys. And it's easy to remember because it's 14:14. So, preface it before. Red Sea, oh snap, what are we going to do? Verse 13, but Moses told the people, don't be afraid, just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. Whew! The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. Okay, so I was mistaken. It wasn't God that said it to him, but it was Moses. Moses is not saying he's got an action plan other than, yo, we're going to trust in God, because if God's the one who's saying that we are set free and he's the one who made everything happen back there in Egypt, yo, I'm pretty sure you can rely that God's going to show up here, because that would be just like a weird ender of a story. And you see that later on, as we talked about in Exodus, like in Exodus 32, that he's like, yo, like, think about how that's going for you, God. This isn't who you are, God. You're faithful, you're true, and stuff like that. And then it's afterwards, then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving. Pick up their staff and raise it over the sea. Divide the waters over it. Like, literally, Moses, pick up the snake stick thing and just hold it over, and people will walk through. All you got to do. And so he does it. And craziness, coolness, awesomeness that has the one of the best pictures you could see. Prince of Egypt, Red Sea. Like, come on, look at that. Did you know that it took guys 2 years just to do this? 2 years to get this picture, to do this cool image and stuff like that. Like, nuts. Okay, why are you pixely? Why are you not working? There, that's a better idea. Like, just absolutely nuts. 2 years for a guy, and yet God's like, done. We got it covered. We figured it out. It's just absolutely nuts, right? God is faithful. We need to just be able to lean on him, sit on him. We need to be stubborn. We need to learn our lesson from Asta and from Moses. We need to be stubborn and relying and trusting in God. And just going, you know what? No. Like, if God said he's going to be here, if God said he's going to be the one who's following through with this, that God's going to help me through, then I got to lean on that. Because Moses could have been like, all right, so we're going to form these groups and we're probably going to die. Because it's chariots versus foot people, right? Like, there's no hope. Anyone who studies, like, warfare knows that's just dead, awkward moment. But yet they're leaning on God. They're trusting on him. They're going, okay, God, like, you need to step in. You need to save us. And it's by being stubborn in Moses laying it down. No, don't be afraid. Watch as God does something. Watch. He hasn't even heard anything from God yet. He's like, watch. Yeah, it's going to be nuts. And so, like, my encouragement to you guys, are you stubborn enough on this? And maybe you don't feel like you know enough about God. Totally understandable. The only way that you're going to find out, though, is by getting into this thing. I like to call it my Demon Slayer 3000 because I'm an anime fan. And plus, I like heavy, thick things that will actually smush things. But spend time in it. You won't know about God if you don't spend time in it. You won't be able to connect with God and develop the confidence that Moses had without engaging God in it. You see again throughout all of Exodus and later on in other parts of the Torah, Moses really starts developing his confidence because he knows God. Like, he was the one who was able to meet God almost, like, basically face to face, which is nuts. Like, absolutely nuts. And to the point he's glowing. Like, that's how you develop confidence in God. That's how you develop this stubbornness. Because when you know God's character and you've talked with him enough, you're going to walk around differently. You're going to be looking at things differently. And you'll almost say my magic is never giving up. But really, my magic is relying on God. Because I've connected with him. I'm sitting with him. I'm talking with him. I'm going, God, this is the thing that I'm going through. This is what I'm facing. Help me to see it in your vantage point, your perspective. Help me to get it. And then when he does, you do. Because that's the thing that after the conversation in the bush, Moses does. Moses hears, he steps out and does. You too can have that kind of confidence. If you're willing to lean on God, if you're willing to meet with him. And it sounds weird. I'm not trying to be hokey faith kind of guy. Like, legit, I know a difference when I meet with God. And it really is huge. Are you willing to level up with me? Are you willing to level up in your life in this way to do that? All right, we got a quote from Solomon, the token quote of the day. It shouldn't freak you out to realize that God's eyes are on you, because he doesn't see you through eyes of disapproval or disappointment. His presence is not a sign of condemnation. It's actually an invitation. God is present with you through his Holy Spirit because he intends to uproot you from the tyranny of the familiar. Oh, that's actually really good. And shatter the monotonous life you've had and take you on an adventure. Yo, that's actually Moses. And that's from Stephen Furtick, which I'm impressed with off that. That's a good quote. Thank you for that, Solomon. That's a quote to sit on and rely on. Yeah, just want to offer that encouragement. If you got any prayer requests, throw it down now real quick. Give a shout out. And again, join our Discord, have a community, have a response in that. But if you got any prayer requests, throw it in there. We'd love to pray. Just giving this last little bit. But again, thank you for sitting with us and being able to dive into who is Asta, who is Moses, how are they connected. I hope this has been refreshing for you, in growing in a different way. If it's a nerdy connection that you never thought of in that way, sweet. That's great. I hope that it's been enriching to you. No prayer requests have come in, so I'm just going to pray. Hey God, just thank you for this time where we've been able to sit on your word, to sit with an anime character and with Moses. On the whole idea of my magic is never giving up, but really my magic is never giving up on you and being stubborn for the sake of knowing and trusting in who you are, God, that you are faithful, you are reliable, you are stubborn in your character, that it doesn't change. And so thank you for that, God. Thank you for time and time again how you have you have helped me to remind myself of that, how I need to sit on that more, how I need to be stubborn in taking that time with you so that I can be like Moses, where I look more and more like you, where I'm shining like you, and people go, yo, that's different. And you make different choices because you are set with God. You are listening with God. Help us to sit with you, to listen to you, to grow with you, so that we can be different and people can see that and go, dang, I want a part of that. Yeah, thank you that you are gracious, that you are willing to take us where we are at, and we don't have to be perfect, but we do need to be keeping our eyes on you. We ask this in your name. Amen. Awesome, crew. Thanks for joining in, those of you joining live, and those of you who are listening to this. Thank you for being awesomely you and hearing our content. Hope you have a wonderful day, and keep leveling up, guys.